Professor Thax had been teaching Intergalactic War Theory 101 for 347 cycles. In all that time, he had never once given a failing grade to an entire class. Until today. The problem, he reflected bitterly, was the two human students. "Your strategic analysis is fundamentally flawed," Professor Thax announced, waving his appendages dismissively at the holographic presentation submitted by the rest of the class. Dozens of alien students representing species with advanced militaries and centuries of warfare experience had collaborated on a theoretical response to an imaginary invasion scenario. "You're assuming the enemy will behave rationally," said Sarah Chen, one of the two humans, raising her hand. "They won't." "Of course they will," replied Xarth, a tactical collective member whose species had unified 3 galactic sectors through strategic brilliance. "Rationality is the foundation of all military doctrine." Sarah exchanged a glance with her human companion, Marcus Rodriguez. Both of them were barely suppressing smiles. "In the scenario you presented," Sarah began, pulling up her own analysis, "the invading force has numerical superiority, better technology, and control of the orbital zone. Your analysis concludes that they would secure the capital within 72 hours with minimal casualties." "Precisely," Xarth chirped triumphantly. "You'd all be dead," Marcus said flatly. The classroom fell silent. Professor Thax's sensory organs twitched with irritation. "Explain." Sarah manipulated the hologram. "First, you're assuming the invaders want to minimize casualties. What if they don't care? What if losing 50,000 soldiers is acceptable to them if it means breaking your psychological resistance?" She continued. "Second, you're assuming professional soldiers who follow orders. What if some of them panic? What if fear makes them irrational? What if they commit atrocities that unite your population against them?" Marcus took over. "Third, and this is the big one, you're not accounting for the fact that when people face extinction, they do crazy stuff. Really crazy stuff. They set their own cities on fire to deny the enemy resources. They sabotage their own infrastructure. They send suicide teams to assassinate leadership. They don't think in terms of acceptable losses, they think in terms of we're already dead, so let's take some of them with us." A Zenthali philosopher raised a contemplative appendage. "You suggest that irrationality is a superior strategy?" "Not superior," Sarah said carefully. "But it's unpredictable. And unpredictable is hard to plan against. On Earth, we have hundreds of examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones because the larger force couldn't predict what the smaller force would do." She pulled up historical data. "See, your analysis assumes both sides are playing the same game. But what if they're not? What if you're playing chess and they're playing something completely different?" Marcus expanded the scenario. "Let's say the invasion forces take the capital as planned. Great. But the civilian population, instead of surrendering, starts a guerrilla resistance. Not organized military resistance, just regular people with improvised weapons and no regard for their own safety. Your soldiers expect professional combatants who follow rules of engagement. Instead, they get grandmothers rigging explosives and teenagers using hit-and-run tactics." He adjusted the variables. "Your casualty rate just went from 2,000 to 50,000. Your supply lines are compromised. Your soldiers are terrified because they can't predict what's coming next. And because they're scared, they overreact, which creates more resistance." Sarah highlighted the cascade effect in the simulation. "Within 6 months, your occupying force is hemorrhaging soldiers. Within a year, they're questioning whether the invasion was worth it. Within 2 years, they're pulling out." Professor Thax felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: intellectual vertigo. He ran the simulation with the humans' variables inserted. The results were catastrophic for the invasion force. "This is unsound," Xarth protested weakly. "This is not how military strategy functions." "It's exactly how it functions on a death world," Marcus said. Where I come from, we don't have the luxury of optimized strategies and predicted outcomes. We have hurricanes that destroy cities at random. We have diseases that kill millions. We have predators that hunt us. We learned a long time ago that the universe doesn't follow rules, so neither should we. Sarah concluded. Your analysis assumes a controlled environment where both sides play by established rules. Real war isn't like that. Real war is chaos. And people from worlds where chaos is normal are better at surviving it. Professor Thack sat in stunned silence. His entire pedagogical framework was built on rational analysis, optimal strategies, and predictable outcomes. And it had just been systematically dismantled by two Deathworlders who understood something his species had forgotten. Sometimes the correct answer was the one that seemed completely wrong. The grade for this assignment, Professor Thack said slowly, is being reassigned. Your class will submit revised analyses incorporating the variables presented by the human students. As the class dispersed in confused murmurs, Sarah and Marcus packed their materials. Do you think they'll actually learn anything? Marcus asked. Probably not, Sarah said with a shrug. They've been comfortable for too long. But maybe one of them will. Behind them, Professor Thax was already reviewing the historical data the humans had provided. By the time they left, he had already begun rewriting the entire course curriculum. Sometimes, he realized, wisdom didn't come from centuries of theoretical knowledge. Sometimes it came from people who had simply learned to survive the unsurvivable.